Have you ever noticed the spikes, planters, or sprinklers in some of NYC's public spaces? Do you know what they're for and who they're targeting? We'll explore how NYC is building more of these and what the impact and implications of this practice are. New York City is a global hub of culture, commerce, and diversity, attracting millions of visitors and residents every year. However, beneath its vibrant surface lies a hidden reality. The city is also home to thousands of homeless people, many of whom are asylum seekers fleeing violence and persecution in their countries of origin. For these vulnerable populations, finding a safe and comfortable place to rest or gather in the city can be a daunting challenge, as they face not only the harsh weather and the lack of affordable housing, but also the deliberate design of public spaces that aim to exclude them. This design phenomenon is known as hostile architecture, and it refers to a range of architectural features that are incorporated into public spaces to discourage or prevent certain activities or behaviors, often targeting people without homes. Examples of hostile architecture include spikes, oversized planters, barricades, and the removal of amenities like bike racks and bathrooms. These features are intended to make public spaces uncomfortable or inaccessible for people who might want to use them for sleeping, sitting, or socializing, forcing them to move elsewhere. Hostile architecture is not a new concept, as it's been used in various cities around the world since the 1960s, initially to deter street gangs and vandalism. However, in New York City, its use has become increasingly pervasive over the past few decades, especially in areas frequented by tourists and wealthy residents. According to some estimates, there are more than 500 examples of hostile architecture in Manhattan alone, and many more in other boroughs. The proponents of hostile architecture argue that it's necessary to maintain order and safety in public spaces, as well as to preserve their aesthetic appeal and functionality. They claim that hostile architecture can reduce crime, prevent littering, and protect property from damage. However, these claims are often unsubstantiated or exaggerated, and they ignore the negative impacts that hostile architecture can have on the homeless population and society at large. In some cases, hostile architecture is installed in response to complaints or pressure from certain groups or individuals, such as property owners, residents, or politicians who want to remove the homeless from their vicinity. However, these decisions are often made without considering the perspectives or the needs of the homeless population or the potential consequences of their displacement. Moreover, these decisions are often made without proper oversight or regulation, as there's no clear legal framework or ethical guidelines for the use of hostile architecture in public spaces. In recent years, there's been a growing awareness and resistance against hostile architecture in New York City, as more people have become aware of its existence and its implications. Activist groups such as Hostile Design NYC and Design for Dignity have been documenting and exposing examples of hostile architecture, as well as organizing campaigns and protests to demand their removal or modification. Their efforts have led to some positive changes, as the removal of controversial hostile benches in 2018 and the City Council's passing of a resolution in 2019 acknowledging the negative impacts of hostile architecture and calling for more humane and inclusive design practices. Sharp spikes as a deterrent. One of the most striking examples of hostile architecture in NYC is the installation of sharp metal spikes near a shelter for asylum seekers in Manhattan. These spikes, which resemble medieval weapons, are placed on the ground and the walls, creating a hostile and hazardous environment for those seeking refuge or waiting in lines. The timing of their installation is also questionable, as they coincided with the opening of the shelter in 2022, suggesting a deliberate attempt to discourage its use and to send a message of unwelcome to the asylum seekers. Oversized planters as obstacles. Another common form of hostile architecture in NYC is the placement of oversized planters by businesses and property owners, especially in areas with high foot traffic and visibility. These planters, which are often filled with rocks, concrete, or fake plants, are used to obstruct sidewalks and prevent people from sitting or congregating near the entrances or windows of businesses. While some may argue that these planters are decorative or functional, their real purpose is to exclude and displace the homeless population, who often use public spaces as their living rooms. Removal of amenities. Another way that hostile architecture is implemented in NYC is by removing public amenities that are essential for the well-being and comfort of the homeless population, such as bathrooms, water fountains, trash cans, and bike racks. These amenities are often removed or relocated in parks and other public spaces near asylum centers where many homeless individuals reside or frequent. The removal of these amenities not only worsens the living conditions for the homeless population, but also affects the quality of life for the neighborhood at large, as it creates sanitation and health issues. In 2021, the city spent $6 million to renovate a park in Queens, but removed the public bathrooms and water fountains in the process. The park, which is located near an asylum center, was previously used by the homeless population as a place to rest, wash, and hydrate. However, after the renovation, the park became inaccessible and inhospitable for them, forcing them to seek other alternatives. Impact on accessibility. Another impact of hostile architecture in NYC is that it reduces the accessibility and mobility of the homeless population, especially asylum seekers who rely on bicycles for transportation and employment opportunities. Many asylum seekers work as delivery workers, using bikes to deliver food and goods to customers across the city. However, they often face difficulties in finding a place to park or lock their bikes, as the city has removed many bike racks and installed planters or other obstacles in their place. These measures not only inconvenience the delivery workers, but also put their bikes at risk of theft or damage. The removal of bike racks and installation of planters is also inconsistent with the city's stated goals of promoting cycling and reducing carbon emissions. In 2019, the city launched a $58.4 million plan to expand its bike network and infrastructure, adding 250 miles of protected bike lanes and 1,500 bike parking spaces by 2022. However, these efforts are undermined by the use of hostile architecture, which discourages and impedes cycling, especially for the most vulnerable and marginalized groups. Safety concerns and controversies. One of the most serious concerns about hostile architecture in NYC is that it poses safety risks and hazards for the homeless population as well as the general public. For instance, the use of spikes, barricades, or sprinklers can cause injuries, infections, or hypothermia for homeless individuals who come into contact with them, especially during the winter months. Moreover, the removal of amenities or the displacement of the homeless population can increase their exposure to violence, crime, or disease, as they're forced to sleep or stay in unsafe or unsanitary environments. Ethical considerations. The use of hostile architecture in NYC also raises ethical questions and dilemmas, as it reflects the city's attitude and approach towards the issue of homelessness and displacement, instead of addressing the root causes and the systemic factors that contribute to the homeless crisis, such as the lack of affordable housing, mental health care, and social support. The city resorts to using hostile architecture to deter and displace the homeless population, effectively criminalizing and dehumanizing them. Moreover, the city uses its resources and funds to implement hostile architecture instead of investing in more humane and effective solutions, such as providing shelters, services, and opportunities for the homeless population. The use of hostile architecture also poses a moral question. Is it justifiable to sacrifice public comfort and safety for deterrent measures? While some may argue that hostile architecture is necessary to protect public spaces and property from damage or misuse, others may contend that public spaces belong to everyone and that everyone has the right to use them for their basic needs and purposes. Furthermore, some may question whether hostile architecture is fair and proportional, as it disproportionately affects the most vulnerable and marginalized groups who have the least power and voice in the city. So what do you think? Is hostile architecture a necessary and justified measure to protect public spaces and property, or is it a cruel and discriminatory way to exclude and erase the homeless population? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos.